Hello and welcome to episode 52 of Retro Recall the PS1 Chronicles, a show where we play and rank every PlayStation game ever created. My name is Jimmy, and as always, I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
So, you picked the game this week.
Yes.
I have a couple questions about puzzle games in general, but just to start, why did you pick this? How did you find it? This is a pretty obscure game.
It is. I honestly can't remember how I found it. But I do remember that, we haven't done a puzzle game in a very long time. So I just went ahead and looked up puzzle games, and I think this just happened to be in a list. So I looked up a screenshot. I'm like, okay, that looks good enough.
Yeah, I want to say the last one we played probably was Tetris, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, so you're a puzzle game lover. I mean, you love this shit. I typically don't gravitate towards puzzle games. I mean, I'm going to withhold my opinion on this one till later. But
yes,
just to get into it, what are your favorite puzzle games? What is your favorite style? Because for me, it's more like Tetris, which is debatable if that's even a puzzle game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's the weird part of how many categories it can fall into. I love Limbo, but that's more like a puzzle platformer.
Yeah.
On my phone, I have Flow. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No, I don't think so.
It's a game where you have a bunch of dots on the screen in a box, and your whole point is you need to connect the dots together because they're all different color. Or you have pairs of colors. You have to connect the dots without overlapping the lines of the lines you made. And
I'm pretty sure I saw an ad for this on social media today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That is crazy.
Weird. I don't think I've ever seen an ad for that game. So
it's like the two color dots, and the ad is someone trying to do them, and they're like, wrong.
Oh, that one. That's a different game, but
same
kind
idea.
of the same. Yeah. So that one I play a lot on my phone. But yeah, Limbo. What's the other one? Inside.
I've played both those games. Yeah.
So I think those are my favorite.
You also really like Portal, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I forgot. It's been so long since I played that game, but yes, I love Portal.
Well, I tried to play The Witness, and that game is very intense if you don't like puzzle games, and you can't really look things up because then it ruins the game for you.
Yeah, I have it. I have yet to get into it because I heard it takes a long time to play that game.
Yeah. I mean, I beat both Limbo and Inside without a walkthrough. I don't know if that's that crazy to say. Those games really aren't the kind of puzzle games I don't like. For me, it's something that's more open-ended.
Like what?
I'm trying to think of an example. I mean, The Witness is one, but a game where you are going to solve this puzzle in any way that you want. There's not a finite solution. For example, the game we're going to talk about today is leaning towards the kind of puzzle games I would like, where it's just you're doing this task and you have to figure out how to solve this specific thing. It's not I do kind of like Portal, but that kind of vibe where you're in this sandbox and you have to figure out how to solve it. That is typically not what I look for in a puzzle game.
You like a more solid, you can see what you have to do and you just do that one thing, not here's an open world, figure it out on your own.
Yeah. There are parameters, there's rules, there's specific ways to solve this. With the game we're going to talk about today, there are a finite amount of things that you can do to solve this. So you have to just sit there and figure it out.
Yes. And I think that goes back to why I love puzzle games so much. This game is a clear example of it. We won't get too much into it, but there's a lot of levels where you can see the solution. You see, okay, this is what I need to do, but how do I get the pieces to move the way I need them to do the thing I know I need to do?
Exactly. That's what I like too. It's how do I get there? But I know what the answer is. And that's what I like.
Same goes with Limbo too, here's this one lever right here. You see the lever. It's very easy to get to there, but the act of actually pulling that lever is so difficult that you wouldn't expect it to be.
Yeah. I mean, back to what I was kind of saying earlier, like, do you consider Tetris a puzzle game?
Yeah, kind of. What would that be classified as?
Like, you're not solving puzzles. It's like almost like an arcade puzzle game in a way, I guess.
Yeah. But the puzzle is fitting the pieces in the way you need them to clear lines, in a sense. And there is forethought of, at least in later games, when you see the pieces that are coming next, so you can think ahead on what you're gonna do.
Yeah. I mean, comes down to like there's those kind of games. There's like the matching kind of games where you have to combine colors and like all sorts of varying arcade style puzzle games. I think that's kind of what I like more.
Yeah. You've even told me about a puzzle game in the past where you might remember this. It was a while back where you see a scene and then you can zoom into the scene to go into another scene to figure something out. Do you remember that?
Yes, it's called something Obra Dinn. I forget what the beginning of it is. The Obra Dinn is the name of the ship that you're on, and you're trying to solve how all the people on the ship died. And
Oh, okay.
you can watch the last moments of their death, and you can go through the whole scene and figure everything out.
Ah, okay.
That might not be what you were thinking of. It might be something else, but that's what comes to mind.
It might be from what I remember. I just remember you explained something like that sounds complicated. Like I don't even know how you'd figure half of this out.
I think it's Return of the Obra Dinn or something like that. But I know for a fact you would like it. It was way too intense for me. Like I tried it and I like the idea of it, but like, so you have to watch these scenes and then you have to put in like, this person was killed by this here. You know what I mean?
So it's kind of like Clue
Yes.
in a sense.
And you kind of can like, for example, you're watching someone die, then someone else dies in that scene. So you go down that rabbit hole and you're seeing all these different things and you have to put it together. And that's just not for me. It's the same thing we were just saying. Like it's too open-ended. I just can't do it.
I get that. I don't know. It does go against the rules of gaming where you don't want to lead people down the wrong path intentionally.
Yeah.
Like it should be clear of what you should do. But I don't know. In a way, it's kind of like, does this work? No. Okay. What's the next thing I can try? And then just go from there.
Yeah, I always end up just like hitting a wall and then I'm just like, well, I'm either going to look this up or quit. And then after looking it up a few times, you're just like, well, am I even having fun here? You know?
Yeah, the thing is like, yeah, I love puzzle games, but it's not like I'm like playing this for hours on end. I'll open up Flow, I'll do like 2 or 3 levels and I'm done for the day. Or if I do like open up Sudoku, I do maybe 1. I'm like, okay, I'm good. And then a couple of days later, I'll pop it back open and do another one.
Yeah, apparently this game came out on phones in Japan later.
Okay. I was gonna say, we'll get into it when we actually see it, but once you see this game, you'll be like, oh, I saw a phone game just like this. It's a very common thing.
All right. Well, with that, we might as well just hop into the game. Turnabout was released on March 31st, 2003, which is super late PS1, like crazy.
Yeah.
Why would you even put this out? It was developed by Art Dink, who did Tale of the Sun, your last random game pick. So
Yep.
what's going on here?
Yeah.
And published by Natsume Inc. And like we said, it's a puzzle game.
Honestly, as I was doing more research on Art Dink 2, another puzzle game I almost picked in the past was also done by them. And I'm like, what is going on here that I just keep going after them?
It's kind of wild. I didn't realize they're still around.
I didn't know that either, actually.
So they made that game, Octopath Traveler.
Don't even
It's an
know.
RPG.
Okay.
They're doing a remake of a Dragon Quest game coming out next year. Like they're still going strong, which is crazy after we played Tale of the Sun and I wanted to just end my life, you know?
Yeah, I guess congrats to them to put out games like that and then also still be in business.
Hey, I mean, they made it work.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine this game sold very much coming out so late for the PS1.
I know. Because of how late it is, people are already on board for PS2 and into that. So I could only imagine that this game just went under the radar.
Dude, this is like 2 or 3 years the PS2 has been out. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
I don't know who you're trying to market this to, especially like such a simple looking game.
Yeah. I mean, there's just not a lot to draw you in with this. I mean,
No.
all right, let's just get started here.
Yeah.
Before we get into the actual game, how long did you play? What level did you make it to?
So I played for an hour and 40 minutes, made it to level 46, but I did skip level 44.
So I made it to level 49, which I believe
Nice.
there's only 50 levels.
No, but yeah, okay.
All right, well, then we'll talk about that in a second. And I played for like, I want to say 2 hours, 10 minutes, somewhere around there.
Nice.
I'm just going to say it. I like this game. It's pretty fun.
Wow. Was
Yeah,
not
yeah.
expecting that to come out of your mouth for this episode.
I was really trying hard not to give it away. Before the episode, we were texting. Even in the intro, I didn't want you to know. But like, I had fun with this one for sure.
Wow. I'm genuinely shocked.
I mean, it's literally what we said in the intro. This game is the epitome of you know what you have to do. Just figure out how to do it.
Yep.
It also, and it kind of reminds me, and we're about to get into the gameplay anyway, so I'll start with this. I don't know if you ever had this as a kid, but those little puzzles that you can get, and it's like a bunch of different train cars, and you have to move them around to get it in the right spot or to get something out.
I think I know the concept of game you're talking about, but I may not have never seen that one.
Yeah, it's essentially like a board, and like you slot different things at different spots based on what it tells you in the book, and then you have to solve the puzzle.
Oh, okay.
I used to play that a bunch as a kid at a family friend's place, and this kind of gives me the same satisfaction that gave me, especially once you get into the stuff where you're moving blocks around too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so the point of this game is to get rid of all of the colored things on the screen, whether it's balls or blocks. And that can take so many different shapes and forms or whatever. There's a lot of different shit that goes on in this, but what it comes down to is you can only turn the screen. You can't do anything else. So you have to just solve the puzzle.
Yep. You can only turn left and right. And then it's not one of those things where you can turn it to the left, let the ball fall, and turn it mid fall. You have to wait until the ball completely comes to a stop, and then you can turn it again.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that till right now, but that would make it a lot more interesting if you could do that.
I tried it on one of the levels. Like, I can't figure this out. I need to just try turning it to maybe change gravity halfway through the fall.
Yeah, I mean, this game would have to be specifically designed around that because it would break the whole game. But
yeah, and there's also cases it's not simply as get red ball into red block. There's also red ball to red ball, or like 2 red balls to 1 red block, where you have to time it up to fall and hit exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot to this. And so what were you getting at with not only being 50 levels? Is there more?
Yep. So what happens, what I typically do, I'll play the game. When I'm done, I'll go and watch videos of other people playing.
Okay.
So what happens is you hit 50, you get the credits, end the game, whatever. When you go back into the game, there's now 50 more levels that you have to go play through. And that's like the extreme, like, okay, you beat that, now you're on like hard mode.
Well, I was rushing to try and beat 50, so I would have been kind of upset if I hurried up, got the ending, and then all of a sudden there's 50 more.
Yeah. Well, also if you even went back, because I don't know if it tells you right away. So if you went back into the game and then saw that 51 was now there, I would have loved to see that on the webcam, to be honest. But because I was in the same boat. Like, I was cruising through this and I'm like, oh, I might actually just beat this game with like under 2 hours. I might have this. So whenever I felt like I was at a good point, I went and when I watched the video, I'm like, oh, okay, there's more than just 2 hours of content here.
Yeah, I mean, if what you're saying is true and the levels are way more intense. I would like to think you probably get just out of the main mode, probably 5 to 6 hours, I would guess.
Yeah, from what I saw, there's all the levels in like the expert mode are like 6 different colored balls that need to go to the 6 different places. So
Yeah, all right. I just mean like one of my big complaints with this was it's short and like this kind of game, like once you beat it, there's not really a lot of replay value.
not at all.
But I mean, if there's 100 levels, then like I can understand that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it, but at the same time, it's the same thing we said about Cooler World. Once you finish all the levels, if you ever get to that point, then what's next after that? At that point, you're just trying to beat your personal score, if that's even possible.
So yeah, I did want to bring that up. The game has no goals or score, right?
No, not at all. It was a weird thing. Hey, I'll just put it like this. For how late this came into, I was expecting way more features. Typically, with a game like this, where you have a counter of how many times you've moved the board, there's at least a par, quote unquote, where it's like, do this in under 10 moves. And then it's like, oh, okay, you cleared it. Even though you can beat it in like 11, well, yeah, you cleared it, but you didn't get like a star for that level for actually doing it right. I would have loved that.
I agree with you. I was expecting just like, even if you beat it and then it's like, okay, now do it again, but do it in this many steps. That would have been enough for me. But I mean, I don't really care at the end of the day. Like, for me, as like the puzzle stuff that I like, the chill, kind of relaxed vibe of this is perfect for me. But like, I feel like for someone who enjoys puzzle games, like for you, I mean, I think that it's probably not enough, right?
No, well, yes and no. It goes back to Flow too. I mean, but Flow has a par system. This is just, I could imagine if I owned this game as a kid, I'd plop it open, do so many levels until I kind of get stuck, put it down for the day, come back to it later. It would never be, I'm playing nonstop like we do for the show. Like me playing 2 hours straight through all these levels is not how I'd ever play a puzzle game. So it's a little weird in that aspect. But for the sake of what we had to do, I'm like, all right, well, I got to do it because we got to get through this.
So I played it throughout the week off and on. I played in about half an hour, 40-minute chunks, which I think is probably the best way to do it.
Yes.
You know, once I started to get frustrated, I was like, all right, I'm done for the day.
Exactly. And that's how I would have done it. But I always just play all straight through the night before.
Yeah, I mean, I have always thought about doing that, but I don't know. I like being able to kind of reflect on it and not just like, I don't know. It's nice that you have your very, very initial thoughts on it here, whereas mine are more like throughout the week.
That's true. Yeah. So I guess just going overall about that with the difficulty, did you ever think that it was too difficult, or what are your thoughts about how the levels work?
So to start, I felt like the difficulty was ramping up very nicely because it starts off very easy, then it slowly gets harder and harder. But then when I got towards the end, it felt like some levels were just too simple. And then some levels were super hard.
Yep.
Like there was some I would just solve by fucking around. And then I'm like, oh, all right, well, there it is. And there's some of them where I'm just sitting there like,
I'm glad it wasn't just me then. There were some levels where I'm just like, I know what I need to do. I've tried this 20 times and I'm not getting it. But then I just am messing around, spinning it around, and then the balls just fall into place where I need them to be. I'm like, well, that's what I've been trying to do on purpose this entire time.
Well, what I found to be the hardest levels in the game, no matter where they sit in the numbers, are the ones with the additional like gray blocks that move around.
Yeah. There's times, again, some of them were very simple.
Yeah.
But then other times it's just like, this is brutally hard.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see my gameplay and you're going to see when I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I'll like pause it for a minute and just like stare at it. Even though I don't need to pause it. Like, you know?
I had to stop my recording at times because I'm just staring at a screen that's not moving. And I'm like, okay, if the ball needs to land here, then I need to put it here and trying to reverse engineer the path of the ball.
I was in the same boat for some of them. And I think for the most part, I would kind of just like luck into the solutions. Like, I don't think that I ever was able to fully figure out, like, when I'm stuck, map it out and then do it correctly. I never really did that.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
Yeah, I just mean like I don't know, my brain doesn't work that way. I'm sitting there puzzling it out and then I like just fuck one thing up. And what I wanted to bring up as well is, so you can undo one move,
Yes.
but it changes the perspective.
I was wondering about that too. Yeah.
Yeah, you undo it, but it doesn't put it back to where it was or like what you're looking at now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like I'd fuck up, I'd undo the move, and then I'm like, wait, what am I doing now?
Yeah. It really does mess with your train of thought of when you have to go backwards a step. It's like, wait, but how did I get here now? Now I don't know what I was supposed to do.
I barely ever did that. I would just restart the whole thing.
Yep.
But I mean, like we're saying, there's no penalty for anything. So do whatever you want, do it at your own pace. And I think that's what I like about this.
Yeah. And even watching your footage now, like with what you just did, I'm like, all you had to do is just spin the opposite way and you went the opposite you were supposed to do. I'm like, oh no.
I know. Hey, you know, you can show my footage if you want, but you're not going to like it.
I mean, and that's the thing too. I thought about that while I was playing of like, people are going to look at our footage and be like, oh, these idiots, how did they not know that all you got to do is just this one extra spin and you're done?
It seems so simple when you're looking at it, but when you're in it, you're just so flustered almost.
You really are. But the biggest thing I thought of, I can't remember what level I hit whenever I came to this conclusion, but that the whole quote of the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Yeah.
That is this game in a nutshell.
That's true. I mean, you do a bunch of things and then you're back to the same thing you were just at again. You're right. Like you're just moving things back and forth, it's doing the same thing over and over again. And you're like, this time it's going to be different.
I don't know the number of the level, but it was the hourglass level.
Okay.
And the whole thing is you had to get both balls onto the bottom half to get the blue one done. And then you can put the red back up to the top and get that one taken care of. The amount of times I've done the exact same moves over and over again, and I'm like, I'm not getting anywhere with this. What am I doing?
What really sucks for me is just, I would be doing a level and I finally get one. And then I realize I did this in the wrong order and now I have to restart. Like I have to get rid of the blue one first or whatever. You know what I mean?
Though I do think they make a lot of it. They don't hide the fact sometimes when they put the blue right next, like the ball right next to the blue square. You're like, oh, you're trying to trick me right now.
Yeah, like when you start and you could just make one turn and get it immediately. You're like, I shouldn't do that.
Yeah. But then, and it goes back to what you were saying about the ramp up. I don't know if you feel the same or if you know the number, but I feel about like level 25-ish is when I really was starting to get stumped a lot.
Yeah, I would say late 20s, early 30s is when it was starting to get pretty hard. But like I was saying, though, there's some levels that just, I don't know if my brain was just in this mode for the game, but there's some I'm just like, oh, there it is, done. But then another one, I'm like sitting here for 10 minutes. Like, I don't know.
It really could be. It's really hard with puzzle games to tell like what that is because of how much you're thinking about always.
I do want to say the one we're looking at right now, number 18, is the first one that I struggled with. And we might be watching me play this level for the rest of this show. And eventually I was like, you know what? I got to come back to this. And I came back to it the next time I played a couple days later, beat it in like 2 tries.
Oh, so, nice.
Yeah.
That's how I am with Flow too. I'll be stuck on one thing for about an hour and then leave it alone and come back a week later, one try and I'm done. I'm like, why did I not do that the first time?
Yeah, just like watching this back, I'm like kind of embarrassed because I'm like, man, this was not as crazy as I thought it was. You know?
No, I get that entirely.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if the difficulty curve is worth taking into account when like judging this game. It's like really hard for me because am I just getting better at the game and some levels are easier than others, or is it just harder? I don't know. I mean, if we would have got to the crazy expert mode, I'm sure we would have known immediately, but
Yeah. Obviously, we're going to be comparing this a lot to Cooler World. Aside from Tetris, I think that was the main puzzle game we've played.
yeah, I mean, this has nothing in common with Tetris.
No. So the big thing for me is that with no timer, the difficulty is all on your brain of how you are perceiving the puzzle. You're not being rushed to actually solve anything. So you messing up is just you messing up, and that's it.
That's true. I mean, even if it is super, super hard, you have unlimited turns. You have as much time as you could possibly want to solve it. So, like, at the end of the day, is it even hard, right? It's like you can just do it for weeks if you want, you know?
Exactly. And it's just the simple controls too. You're not jumping over things, you're not dodging things. It's just left and right. That's all you're pushing the entire time.
Yeah, and I mean, it just brings back the whole complaint with the timer that you had with Cooler World, right? I mean, if that didn't have that timer, I bet you that game would be rated a lot higher and it would have more of a relaxing vibe. But instead, Cooler World sits at a weird spot between something like this and a more arcade experience.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing too is I noticed that you keep using the menu boxes. So there are actually quick keys to reset and go back a level. I believe triangle sets you back one step that you did, and then X completely resets the map.
Yeah, but I was always afraid I would push the wrong button. So then I just kind of paused it, and pausing it to reset just feels natural to me. It wasn't for any particular reason, you know?
I will say there's a part I was close to solving a puzzle and I dropped the controller and it hit X and reset it, and I was very pissed.
It does ask you if you want to reset it. It doesn't just do it. So there is that.
I turned off the confirmation.
Well, that's on you.
It is.
That's why I didn't. But yeah, I mean, a big part of this game for me, and like probably one of the bigger reasons why I like it, is like I think it's a beautiful game and the music is amazing.
I knew you were going to bring up the music. I agree. Very good. But for me, at least, it just gets so repetitive, right? Like
The music?
when you're on, yeah,
Well, it changes, I think, every 10 levels.
right. So for 10 levels, if you spend an hour on those 10 levels, you're listening to the same loop for an hour.
I mean, you're not wrong, but like to have 50 different songs is kind of crazy to ask.
I completely get that. And I went back and listened to the OST, and just listening to the songs on their own without looping nonstop forever, they are amazing. There's like that one that has like that bass drop thing in it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, I like that.
Yeah, I think this is going to enter the rotation for me. I love this music.
But yeah, the overall OST is only like 7 tracks in under 20 minutes, I think. So
Yeah. I don't know. I just think it really gives this game like that atmosphere of just, you're just chilling out, solve this puzzle at your own pace. Don't worry about it. You know, listen to this cool music. Just do your thing. That's kind of why I like it.
yeah, and then the simple graphics, simple movements, like we said. I do like how with the floor pattern, you can change what that looks like at any time.
Yeah, I messed around with a few different ones. I mean, it doesn't really change much, but I like that you can do that. And there's like, what, 5 or 6 different ones?
If not a little bit more than that, yeah, there's a lot of options.
Yeah, I mean, this game lacks options in a lot of areas, but not there.
Yeah. The biggest thing about everything were the graphics and everything. It's just simplicity.
Yeah.
Is really what they did.
Yeah, and I mean, they don't need to go crazy. Like, this could have had polygonal backgrounds if they wanted, but what would that have solved?
Yeah, I guess we didn't mention. Yeah, as you're seeing on the screen, like the backgrounds act like a kaleidoscope as you spin around
Yeah,
the map, which is cool that it's all interactive like that.
exactly. Like if this game came out today, right? The background would be some sort of like 3D visualizer kind of thing. But at the end
Yeah.
of the day, it accomplishes the same thing. And it doesn't need anything else. Like, would it look nicer? Sure, but you're not looking at it anyway. It's just there.
And you're not, like we said about Cooler World with how bad their backgrounds were, you're not
Mhm.
focusing on the background. It's just in your peripherals as you're playing the game.
Exactly. But even with Cooler World, I feel like it mattered more than this because that's a 3D game.
True. Very true.
You're like forced to look at it more. Whereas, like with this, you're just kind of doing your thing.
Hmm. A big annoyance for me was not a huge annoyance, but the sound effects, the clinking noise every time the balls hit. I wish like if they had a volume knob for that sound effects instead of just on or off, I would
Yeah.
have liked to turn that down a little bit.
Yeah. I hear you. I mean, at the end of the day, I didn't really think about it because, like, once you start playing, you're just used to it. But I
Yeah. Especially when you're already frustrated that you just tried the same thing about 50 times and you're still not getting it. And you just keep hearing those clinks every single time. It's like, oh, I'm going to go insane.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think this game, there's a lot of ways that it could have went wrong. Like, there's a lot of things, like just little things they could have did that would have like completely ruined it, in my opinion. But I think they made the right choice by making it more relaxing and chilled out and just like you're sitting at something doing this. You know what I mean?
That is true. Yeah. Like those little get the metal ball to the whole maze type things.
Yeah.
I forget what they're called.
I know what you mean, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that covers everything about
Yeah.
the game.
Yeah. I mean, there's also a mode where you can build your own puzzles, which I didn't mess with because I wouldn't, I don't do that anyway. But it's cool that exists and you can build up to 50 more levels.
It's insane how many you can build. And I really didn't mess around with it too much, but how long would it take to build out a map that works to then be something you could play? I feel like that's a challenge all in its own.
Yeah. I mean, that's dozens of hours if you want to. If you just want to
Yeah.
build these puzzles, make your friends play them,
Yeah, it's not like that. What was it, Tetris Plus, where you can build your own Tetris map?
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty straightforward. This is more, you really have to think about every move possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool that you can do it. I would never do it, but I don't know. I could see someone building some crazy shit in this game. It's a shame that there's not really much more, that there's not like a fan base for this game because there's probably some really cool levels that people have built, but we'll never see them.
That would be cool, like a more modern version where you can upload your own maps for people to play, kind of like Trials.
Or like Mario Maker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this game did come out on the PlayStation Network as like a PlayStation Classic. But
Oh, okay.
I think that's the only more modern release of it in North America anyway. And by modern, I mean like probably almost 16 or 17 years ago at this point. So,
Yeah.
which is funny because that was like 4 or 5 years after it came out originally. So,
Right.
but yeah, the only other thing that we haven't brought up that I wanted to talk about was that there's no multiplayer, which I
Yeah.
feel like at a certain point is almost essential for some puzzle games.
Yes, but I also thought about it too of what would multiplayer be? Just like you're racing to finish before the other person, I guess.
I feel like you could do a mode that's like kind of like Battle Tetris where you could put a blocks in the other person's puzzle or something.
Oh, yeah.
And now they have to like deal with that. It would have to be made sure that you could still solve it with extra blocks. But like,
I could not imagine the logistics behind that.
maybe that's why they didn't do it. But
Maybe.
that was something that came to mind. Or like, you co-op mode where you're both different colored balls and you have to figure it out together.
Ah, that would be cool.
I don't know. I just feel like something like that would give this game a little more because, like, yeah, there's 100 puzzles and the edit mode, but if we're being generous, I think we're looking at maybe 10 hours to play this game before you've literally done everything. And if you don't absolutely love it, you're done.
Yeah, I could see that. Just solving the expert puzzles alone could take that much time, but even then, it's just once you're done, you're done. And we've played a lot of games that are like that. Once you're finished, there's nothing more to do. My biggest complaint with the entire thing of how late it came into the PlayStation life is just with how minimalistic it is, which like you said, that's a calming thing. It's cool, but I just feel like there could have been a little bit more that you did to maybe like improve on the soundtrack to make it a little bit more songs to listen to, or put in these little extra features or more of options. It just feels like, for how simplistic it is, it feels like more of an early PlayStation game, not or past the PlayStation type game.
Well, I don't know if this affects your opinion of it at all, but it was a budget game. It didn't come out at full price. So going into this, you knew it was not a big experience.
Okay. I didn't know that at all. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that excuses everything, but it does excuse some of it to a degree for me. Like, if this was $60, like, yeah, then fuck you. No way. But
it just goes to like seeing how much detail they put into Tale of the Sun. Sure, it wasn't like groundbreaking, but it was more graphics, more mechanics going on. So to go from that to this is like, what were we doing here to downgrade and how much you're putting into the games?
I hear you, but at the same time, I'm just like, what more does it really need? Right? I mean, like a few more options and a little more music. And I don't even think it needs more music because I like the tracks that were there. But I don't know. I mean, I go back and forth on it, especially with the replay value thing too. Like I go back and forth, like, should you always have replay value? Does not having replay value affect the game? I don't know. I think it's a case-by-case basis, right?
I mean, every puzzle game we're ever going to play, I think that's going to be the same conversation of the replay value, because just at its core, a puzzle game doesn't really have replay value. The whole point is to beat the puzzle. When you beat it, you're done.
Yeah. I mean, sure, you're going to forget a bunch, but like, you'll never have the same experience again.
Yeah, it's not like modern games now where we have achievements to go with the puzzle game. So yeah, sure, you beat the game, but now can you do it without, like Limbo? Can you beat the entire game with only dying 5 times? And it's such an extreme challenge that now you have that replay value to go for that most extreme challenge within the game.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's why I was thinking this is not really a knock against this. It's just, these are things we would do to improve it, but it doesn't necessarily need these things.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I'm ready to get into some reviews if you are.
Yeah, I've been out for a long time on topics.
So as to be expected, with a late PS1 game, it was pretty much ignored by everybody. Barely any reviews. I literally found one single review that I could actually read. But before going into that, what I do have is Famitsu, like the Japanese game magazine, gave this game a 23 out of 40. Wow. And then they also have a PlayStation-based like sub magazine, and they gave it an even lower score of 21 out of 40.
Harsh.
I don't know. For me, I think that it's just a product of the PS2 being out and them wanting probably something a little more advanced.
Yeah.
Which I can understand, but like, gotta judge the game for what it is, not for what it isn't.
Exactly.
But yeah, so official PlayStation Magazine gave it a 4 out of 5. And they said, being a budget title, Turnabout is a bit light on extras. There's no 2-player mode, there are no fancy menus, and there isn't much variety in the way that different levels look. But it does have some surprising features. The soundtrack is great for one thing, sometimes jazzy, sometimes trancey. It never gets too repetitive or intrusive.
I agree with everything except for the repetitive part, but already been there. We already talked about it.
Yeah. But I mean, not much more to say. I think we just get to these scores. And I think you got to go first.
I expected it being a puzzle game.
Yeah.
It's expected every time we have one of these. Yeah, I think, and I'll go back to the review for this too about what they say. There wasn't much variety with the way levels looked. Do you need that? I don't think so. It goes back to what we were talking about, how the simplicity, could be both a positive and a negative, I guess. It just depends on how you want to look at it. I like this. It reminds me of everything I like about puzzle games. I think me playing it nonstop kind of burnt me out a little bit, but that's just what it is.
Yeah.
Overall, I think it's a great game. Could it have improved a lot? Yes, but I was going to go with a 7.5.
All right. Well, then for me, I was surprised at how much fun I had with this because I don't really like puzzle games very much. And
I'm very shocked.
I think I'm just starting to learn the kind of puzzle games I like. And maybe I just do like puzzle games. I just don't like a lot of the ones that I've tried. Maybe. But like I said, the vibe is great. It's a very fun, just sitting there solving puzzles at your own pace. And I love that. I think I'm going to go with an 8.
Nice. I wasn't too sure about it. I'm like, is mine too low or too high? It's hard because of how simplistic it is, but
I almost went 8.5. I thought about it and I'm like, well, there isn't a lot here. It could use more. And like the review said, there's a lot of stuff that's missing. But like if they made another one of these and just upped the production value a little bit and added all that stuff, we'd be looking at a 9.
Oh, 100%. There's not too many flaws with this game. So just those tiny improvements would have greatly changed the way we looked at it.
Yeah.
All right, so that's going to give it a 7.75. We have no scores with 7.75 right now, which crazy.
Yeah.
So it's going to put it at number 11, right under Dino Crisis 1.
For what this game is, for the genre, I think it's some of the best we've seen. So like to sit up there with those games that are also some of the best in their genres, I think is perfect.
Now imagine later on when we have a puzzle game that is this, but more detailed and maybe doing more stuff that we didn't even think about in this episode of, they could have changed this.
Exactly. I mean, I'm happy that I finally found some puzzle games that I like. And I mean, I think I'm going to find more with this show. So
that's what I love about this show. We're finding things we generally would have hated in the past.
I mean, like I genuinely like this game. And I think, like you're saying, that's a fun part of this where we're finding all these things that I would have never, ever played this in a million years if you didn't pick it. So
not at all.
But also, what a start to the year. 2 games that are like in the higher scores.
Not good because
2 random games at that. Like 2 games that, one of us or both of us have never heard of.
Yep. We shouldn't be holding on to this high for too long because it's probably going to come crashing down. But I do agree. I love it.
No, I mean, it's just fun to have these surprises. Like,
exactly.
In the next few weeks, that might change. But for now, we can ride high on that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, this was a fun episode, but that's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this, please remember to like and subscribe as well as give us a rating on podcast services. We'll see you next week.